My name is Brandon Miller. I'm 34 years old and I work in logistics for a freight company in Ohio. Nothing flashy, just steady pay, good benefits, and enough hours to make the week blur together. But everything changed the day my mom passed. She didn't have much, no stocks, no secret savings, but she had that house, a small, creaky two-story tucked at the edge of Elyria. It had yellow siding that peeled in the winter and the kind of front porch you only saw in old photos. That house raised us. It held birthday parties, tear-stained report cards, and the last Christmas we all spent together before things fell apart. And when she passed, the house was all that remained. She left it to me in her will. Me, not my sister. It was clear, legally binding, notarized. Still, the day I drove out there to start cleaning it out, it was gone. Not burned down, not vandalized, just gone. In someone else's hands. A sold sign in the yard, new paint, new locks. A stranger waved at me from the porch like I was the trespasser. That was the moment I knew. Something wasn't just wrong, something had been stolen. I called my sister Tasha instantly. No answer. Then again. Voicemail. Then a text. We need to talk. That was all it said. Tasha and I hadn't been close in years. She was always the dramatic one. Moved to Atlanta to be a lifestyle coach, whatever that means. Every time she came home, she acted like she was visiting a museum. Always too good for small town living. But this? Selling the house behind my back? Didn't make sense. I drove straight to the county clerk's office, heart pounding like I already knew what I was about to see. And there it was, transfer of deed. Notarized sale documents, Tasha's signature on every page. She didn't just help sell it, she acted as if she owned it. But she didn't. Mom's will was crystal clear. I sat in that stiff wooden chair, hands shaking, and realized this wasn't just betrayal. It was jealousy, spite, and maybe something she'd been planning for a long time. I thought back to the funeral. She didn't even cry. Just floated in late, wearing heels too high for a cemetery, sunglasses too dark for a cloudy day. When the lawyer read the will, I saw the flicker in her face. She smiled, but not the kind that reached her eyes. Now I knew why. She hadn't accepted Mom's decision. She took what she thought she deserved. What she felt was owed to her. I tried to stay calm, tried to think logically, but logic doesn't help when your childhood home's been gutted and flipped like some HGTV episode without your permission. I called her again. This time she picked up. "Brandon, don't yell," she started. "You don't understand. You sold Mom's house," I snapped. "I house." She went quiet, then said something I'll never forget. "You didn't need it, Brandon. You were just going to let it rot." I was speechless. That house wasn't just lumber and drywall, it was our family. And she'd thrown it away for a quick check and an ego boost. The worst part, she already spent the money. She admitted it, said it went toward her business and branding like Mom's memory was some kind of Kickstarter campaign. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Because right then, something clicked. I could sue her. Go legal. But I knew Tasha. She was slippery, always had an angle, always danced around consequences like they didn't apply to her. If I wanted justice, I had to be smarter, quieter, so I did what she never expected. I smiled. I told her, "All right, if that's how you want it," and I hung up. Because this wasn't over. She may have stolen the house, but she had no idea what I still had and what I was about to do with it. Growing up, Tasha was always the favorite. She didn't just walk into a room, she arrived. Teachers adored her. Neighbors bragged about her. Even when she messed up, Mom would just sigh and say, "That girl's got fire in her. She'll go far." Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, the one who did the dishes without being asked, the one who stayed home on weekends and never got into trouble. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't loud. I just did what needed to be done. And for a long time, I thought that was enough. But when Mom got sick, everything shifted. I was the one who took her to appointments. I was the one who stayed up through the coughing fits, reading to her when she couldn't sleep. Tasha sent flowers from Atlanta. Once, the night Mom died, she didn't even answer my call. She texted the next morning with, "Sorry, just saw this." And yet somehow, I'm the one she painted as selfish, like I had taken something from her just by being chosen. After the call, I spent the next few days digging into everything. I called the real estate office that handled the sale. They claimed Tasha presented a power of attorney, a fake one, I asked for a copy. It was clearly doctored. An old template, mom's signature scanned in from a form she used 10 years ago. I couldn't believe how bold she was. That's when I called my lawyer, Mrs. Watkins. She'd handled mom's will and knew the situation better than anyone. I sat in her office, surrounded by dusty legal books and that slow spinning ceiling fan she never replaced. You have a solid case, she said. Forgery, fraudulent sale, misrepresentation. But I hesitated. Suing my sister would go public. Embarrassing her might satisfy my pride, but it wouldn't bring the house back. I needed a win that would last. Mrs. Watkins leaned forward. There's another option, she said. The buyers use a flipper loan. If you can prove fraud in the sale, the title company has to revoke it. You won't just sue your sister. You'll take the house back. That was it. That was my way in. Not revenge. Restoration. Tasha didn't know I was already 10 steps ahead. She thought I'd mope around, maybe send a threatening text or two, then move on. But I spent years learning how things work, not just the emotional stuff, but the systems, the contracts, the quiet corners where paperwork can undo the loudest lies. I started collecting everything, mom's original signature samples, every text, every voicemail. I even had an old photo of the two of them signing a real estate form in 2019. The signature on that document, completely different from the forged one she used to sell the house. I sent it all to Mrs. Watkins. She smiled as she sorted through it. This will shake them, she said. And when it does, don't flinch. I nodded. I wasn't planning to. Because I wasn't just doing this for me. I was doing it for mom. She chose me for a reason. She trusted me to carry the legacy. And I'd be damned if I let my sister erase that with a fake signature and a selfish grin. A week later, I got word the title company froze the transaction. The new owners were just a couple from Akron looking to flip and resell. They were livid. But legally, their anger wasn't aimed at me. It was aimed at Tasha. And that's when she called again. This time it wasn't with confidence. It was with panic. Brandon, what did you do? She snapped. You're ruining everything. I waited a beat, then said, no, you ruined everything when you let jealousy make your choices. She went quiet. I could hear her breathing hard. You can't just take it back, she whispered. Watch me, I said. Then I hung up. She still didn't get it. This wasn't about revenge. This was about reminding her who she was really messing with. 2 days after I froze the sale, the fallout began. Tasha tried to act unbothered, posting motivational quotes on Instagram and pictures of fancy salads in high-rise restaurants, but I knew better. Her phone calls got more frequent. Her texts turned manic. 1 minute she was apologizing. The next she was threatening me with lawsuits and telling me I'd regret humiliating her like this. But I wasn't trying to humiliate her. I was trying to undo the mess she created. Still, the truth has a way of shining through, even when you try to filter it with fake smiles. A local blogger picked up the story, just a short post. County pauses sale of historic Elyria home amid legal dispute. They didn't name names, but small towns love their gossip, and everyone knew the house. Everyone knew Tasha had come home and closed a deal. So it didn't take long before people started asking questions. People she grew up with, people who remembered her when she was just the loud girl who couldn't sit still in Sunday school. Now they were looking at her sideways, and I hadn't even gone public yet. Meanwhile, I met with the title company's fraud investigator, a sharp woman named Lorraine who'd been doing this longer than I'd been alive. She took one look at the forged documents and raised an eyebrow. Whoever did this thought cutting and pasting a JPEG signature was enough, she said. This isn't just fraud, it's lazy fraud. That gave me more leverage than I imagined. If I pushed harder, we could revoke the sale entirely and file a criminal complaint. But again, that wasn't my first move. I didn't want Tasha arrested. I wanted her accountable. So I gave her one last chance. I texted her. Meet me at the house, tomorrow, noon. No lawyers, just us. She didn't respond. But the next day, when I pulled up to that old yellow siding, she was already there, arms folded, sunglasses on, leaning against a car she couldn't afford without the check she stole from my inheritance. She looked like a kid who got caught shoplifting. I stepped out of my truck and didn't say a word. She started talking first, of course. I didn't mean for it to get this far, she said, voice shaking just enough to sound human. I just thought, I don't know, you'd move on. You never even liked this house that much. That was the last straw. I took a step closer. I didn't like this house. Tasha, this house is where Mom took her last breath, where she raised us, where I scraped my knees on the porch and painted her room when she couldn't walk up the stairs anymore. Don't stand here and pretend it was just a piece of property. She looked away, biting her lip. I needed the money, she said finally. My business was failing. I didn't know what else to do. That part I believed. But what she didn't realize was need doesn't excuse theft, especially not from family, especially not from the one person who never turned his back on her, even when she deserved it. I gave her a folder. Inside were copies of the forged documents, texts she sent admitting she did it, and a formal settlement offer. Sign this, I said. You'll agree to void the sale, publicly acknowledge the forgery, and transfer full legal title back to me. I'll drop the fraud complaint if you do it within 48 hours. You don't? I'll press charges, and I'll go public. She stared at it like it was a bomb. You wouldn't, she said. I'm your sister. I looked her dead in the eye. Exactly. Then I turned and walked away. She didn't chase me. She just stood there watching the house, the one she tried to erase me from, knowing she had 48 hours to choose her ending. And if she didn't, well, I had already written a new one. Tasha didn't call, didn't text, didn't even breathe online. It was the quietest I'd seen her in years. The clock was ticking, and I let every second count. Part of me thought she'd try something dramatic, maybe another forged document or a last-minute plea to a family friend with legal connections. But deep down, I think she finally understood. This wasn't a bluff. I wasn't the little brother who stayed quiet at the dinner table anymore. I was the man she stole from, and I wasn't letting her rewrite that narrative again. At 47 hours and 12 minutes, her email came in. Subject, fine. The message was short, just a PDF with a signature and 2 words typed cold at the bottom, you win. I stared at it for a moment, heart not racing, not proud, just still. I sent it to Lorraine at the title office, who replied 5 minutes later, it's done. The house is yours again. No celebration, no fireworks, just peace, a quiet victory, the kind that doesn't need to be shouted because truth doesn't scream, it stands. But here's the thing about closure. It doesn't always come wrapped in satisfaction. After I got the house back, I went inside for the first time since the day Mom passed. It didn't feel like a home anymore. The new owners had stripped it. The curtains were gone. The wallpaper was painted over. Her rocking chair vanished. I walked through each room like I was navigating a dream that had been rearranged by someone else. I found a box in the attic the flippers hadn't touched. Photos, mostly. Old birthday cards, school portraits with our bad haircuts, receipts from vacations we barely remember. But there was one letter, written in Mom's handwriting, addressed to me. Brandon, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. But I know you'll find your way. This house is more than wood. It's you. And if Tasha ever loses her way, don't lose yours trying to fix it. Just hold your ground. That's all I ask. Hold your ground. I sat on the attic floor and cried harder than I had in years, not just for the house or for Mom, but for the part of me that had been trying so hard to prove something to my sister, to the world, maybe even to myself. I realized then that the house was never about ownership. It was about responsibility. Mom trusted me with something real, and I had spent so long trying to protect it from Tasha that I almost forgot what it meant to live in it. That night, I called a contractor not to flip it, not to sell it, but to restore it. I wanted the porch swing back, the kitchen tiles, the creaky stair that always moaned when you skipped the 3rd step. I wasn't rebuilding a property. I was rebuilding a memory, a legacy. A few days later, Tasha showed up uninvited. I heard the knock, and when I opened the door, there she was. No sunglasses, no lipstick, just her. She looked exhausted. Can I come in? She asked. I hesitated, then nodded. She walked through the hallway like it was a museum of her mistakes. She stopped at the window overlooking the backyard. We used to build forts out there, she said quietly. Remember? I nodded again. She turned to face me, eyes red but dry. I messed up. I really messed up. It wasn't an apology, not exactly, but it was the closest she'd ever come. I leaned against the wall and said nothing. Just let the silence be the answer. Because some wounds don't need replies, just space. And maybe time. As she left, she turned back one last time and asked, "So what now?" I smiled gently. Now, I rebuild. You, figure out who you really are. She didn't argue. She just nodded and walked away. For once, not running, not deflecting, just walking. And as she disappeared down the street, I stood in the doorway, holding the house key Mom gave me the day she wrote that letter. I had held my ground. Now it was time to build something that would last beyond both of us. Restoring the house wasn't just about paint and plaster. It was about reclaiming something deeper. Every day I stepped through that front door, I felt like I was walking into a heartbeat. I hired local guys who'd known my mom, neighbors who remembered the house when it smelled like Sunday pot roast and old books. Mr. Thomas from across the street fixed the porch railing for free. Miss Carla dropped off homemade cookies for the workers. Even old man Rivers came by to share a story about how my mom once helped him file taxes after his wife passed. She had the kind of kindness that made you feel like you weren't a burden, he said, wiping the corner of his eye. That hit me harder than I expected, because in all the chaos, Tasha's betrayal, the court filings, the cold emails, I'd forgotten how deeply my mom's presence stretched across this street. She didn't just raise me, she raised this block, and they hadn't forgotten her. They remembered every favor, every casserole, every late night ride to the pharmacy, and now they were showing up. Not for me, for her. I took a break from repairs one afternoon and sat on the porch, drinking sweet tea out of an old chipped mug Mom used to keep on top of the fridge. A little girl across the street waved at me. I waved back, and her mom called out, "Looks good, Brandon. Your mom would be proud." I didn't respond out loud, but I whispered under my breath, "I hope so." That's when I noticed the envelope tucked under the door. It wasn't a bill, no stamp, just my name in Tasha's handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper. "You were always better at staying," she wrote. "I was always trying to run. I wanted to build something fast. You were building something that could last. You were right. I see that now." It wasn't a full apology, not yet, but it was something, a crack in the wall she'd built, and maybe that was enough for now. I went back to work, replaced the flooring, repainted the staircase, even found the exact same curtains Mom used to have in the kitchen window, the ones with little sunflowers stitched across the bottom. It was like bringing her spirit back piece by piece. And as the house came together, so did something inside me. I stopped checking Tasha's social media, stopped rehearsing conversations I'd never have. I started sleeping again, started smiling again. And slowly I realized something. The house wasn't the only thing I was rebuilding. I was restoring me, the version of myself that wasn't guarded or angry, the version who believed in trust, in people, in doing the right thing, even when it hurt. Then came the news that took me by surprise. The city was planning to tear down the old library 2 streets over. The same one Mom used to take me to every Saturday morning. They said it wasn't up to code, too old, too costly to fix. But it felt wrong, like they were trying to erase another piece of this neighborhood's soul. So I made a call, a few actually. I met with the council rep, offered to fund the initial repairs myself, and even got 2 local businesses to donate labor. It wasn't about money, it was about legacy. If Mom taught me anything, it was that the things worth saving aren't always the easiest to fix, but they're always the most important. And suddenly, the kid who once got called boring for staying home too much was becoming the guy who brought home back. By the time the house was finished, it didn't just look like Mom's again. It felt like it. Warm, honest, lived in. I opened the windows, let the breeze in, and stood in the middle of the living room where her recliner used to be. The world outside hadn't changed much, but I had. And as I stared out at the same street I used to ride bikes down, one thing was clear. I didn't just get the house back. I got my roots back, and with them, a new beginning. 2 weeks after the renovations were complete, Miss Carla knocked on my door holding a stack of flyers and a tray of peach cobbler. "We're bringing back the neighborhood block party," she said, smiling. "Haven't had one since your mama's chili won the last cook-off." I smiled back, holding the screen door open. "You think anyone's brave enough to try to top that?" She laughed. "Only if you cook." It was her way of nudging me back into the fold, not just as the man who inherited the house, but as someone who was part of the community again. I agreed to help set up the tables and handle the sound system. It felt good to say yes to something that didn't require a lawyer, a contract, or a signature. Just food, people, and memories. The flyer had a bright red border and big, bold letters. "Saturday at 5. Everyone's welcome." And that's when I knew Tasha would show up. Sure enough, Saturday came with clear skies and the smell of ribs, corn, and nostalgia in the air. The street buzzed with lawn chairs, kids chasing bubbles, and old friends sharing stories over paper plates. I wore a simple navy tee and jeans. Nothing fancy, but I stood tall, confident. Around 6:15, I saw her. Tasha. She stepped out of a black SUV in flats and a plain sweater, more dressed down than I'd ever seen her. No dramatic entrance, no entourage, just her. She walked slowly like someone unsure if she was welcome. A few people nodded politely. One older neighbor gave her a quick side hug, but it was clear everyone knew what had happened, and yet no one was cruel, just cautious. She eventually made her way to me, stopping a few feet away. "Hey," she said softly. I nodded. "Didn't expect you." "Didn't think I'd come," she admitted, but I figured if Mom were still here, she'd have made me. We both laughed quietly. It was the first honest sound we'd shared in a long time. We sat at the folding table near the sidewalk, watching the crowd as dusk settled in. Kids chased fireflies. A speaker played Marvin Gaye. It felt like we'd stepped into one of our childhood summers, except now we were the adults standing where our parents once stood. Tasha pulled something from her bag, a small photo frame. Inside was a picture of us as kids, on the front steps, faces sticky with popsicle juice, arms around each other like we didn't know the world could ever turn sour. "I found this while cleaning out storage," she said. "Figured you'd want it." I took it, surprised by the lump in my throat. "Thanks," I said. Then, finally, the words I'd been waiting for. "I'm sorry, Brandon. For the house, for everything. I got so caught up in proving I was something, I forgot who I was to you, to Mom, to this place." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rehearsed. It was real. And that's all I'd wanted. I didn't say I forgive you. Not right away. Some wounds need time, even when they've started to heal, but I said something better. "Help me with the library." She looked up, confused. I explained the plan to save the building, how I'd already started funding repairs. "You've got connections, you're good at selling things. Use that for something that matters." She blinked. "You want me involved?" "I want you accountable," I said, "and involved." She smiles. Not the smug one, the real one. The one I remembered from back before everything turned into competition. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." As the night drew to a close, I stood in front of the crowd and gave a short thank you speech for the block party. Tasha stood beside me, quiet but present. I looked out at the street, our street, and knew the house wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. Because even when people tear things down out of jealousy, sometimes they stick around to help build them back stronger than before. We started with peeling paint and broken windows, but the real work was never about the library. It was about seeing if my sister could rebuild something she broke. Trust. The city approved the permit for repairs, and just like that, we were co-leads on a restoration project that meant more than either of us admitted. Tasha showed up every morning in sneakers and a ponytail, not designer heels and excuses. She made calls, organized volunteers, and pitched the story to 3 local papers. "We're saving the past to build the future," she told one reporter. I watched her work, skeptical at first, but then she surprised me. She didn't take credit, not once. Every interview, every post, every mention, she redirected it. "My brother started this. I'm just following his lead." And with each word, the wall between us lowered, brick by brick. Still, I didn't let myself relax. People can change, but patterns don't vanish overnight. We held our first fundraiser 3 weeks in. It was small, just a potluck and raffle in the church basement, but it packed out fast. Tasha gave a short speech that night, nothing fancy, just honest. "I haven't always made the best choices," she said, "but this library taught me how to dream when I was a kid, and I want to make sure other kids still have that chance." People clapped. Some nodded. One older man even shouted, "You're doing your mama proud, girl!" And for the first time in a long while, I agreed. After the event, we stayed late cleaning up, just the 2 of us. She was wiping down a table when she said, "You know I never hated you, right?" I didn't answer right away. "Jealousy doesn't always come from hate," I said. "Sometimes it comes from forgetting your own worth." She nodded, eyes on the sponge in her hand. I forgot who I was. I forgot what we had. I sighed. And now, she looked at me steady. I'm remembering. A few days later, the mayor's office called. They wanted to feature the project at an upcoming city council meeting, highlighted as a model for community-led restoration. It was a big deal. We were invited to speak. I told Tasha to take the lead. She looked surprised, then a little scared. You trust me to represent this? She asked. I trust you to represent yourself, I said. This time, the right way. She spoke well that night. Nervous at first, but then passionate. She talked about Illyria like someone who'd never left, someone who remembered the quiet beauty and cracked sidewalks and small town stories. The council approved a matching grant to help finish the work. The library was saved. But more importantly, so was something between us. The next morning, she showed up at my door with coffee. No fanfare, just a quiet, thanks for giving me the space to fix it. I let her inside. We didn't talk much, just sat on the porch and watched the neighborhood come alive, the same porch we used to sit on as kids, legs dangling, popsicles in hand. So what happens after this? She asked eventually. The library's done. The house is yours. Do we just go back to how things were? I shook my head. No, we don't go back. We go forward. That's the whole point. She smiled, and this time I knew it wasn't just for show. It was real. I knew better than to expect perfection. She'd probably slip up again, and so would I. But maybe that's the beauty of rebuilding. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to hold. And ours was starting to hold. The town saw it. Our neighbors saw it. And maybe, just maybe, Mom saw it too. The library's grand reopening fell on a crisp Saturday morning, almost a full year since the day I discovered the house had been sold. It felt surreal walking through the double doors and seeing it all brought back to life. Fresh shelves, soft lighting, handmade quilts hung as art along the walls. Kids darted through the aisles, clutching new library cards. Elderly neighbors flipped through newspapers at restored reading tables. A plaque hung near the entrance. Illyria Community Library, restored by the hands and hearts of Brandon and Tasha Miller. It was her idea to include both our names. I told her she didn't have to. I know, she said, but I want it there. I need it there. And just like that, for the first time, our names were side by side, not on a court document or an argument, but on something good. Something that would outlast us both. And when I looked at it, I didn't feel anger. I felt proud of the building, of the journey, of hi. After the ribbon cutting, people milled around, drinking cider and sharing memories. Tasha and I stood back, quietly watching. Miss Carla wiped a tear from her cheek and hugged us both. Y'all brought this place back to life, she said. Your mama would have loved this. That was the moment the weight lifted from my chest, not all at once, but enough that I could breathe differently. Tasha looked over at me. We did it, she whispered. You led, I corrected. I just made sure you didn't crash the car again. She laughed, really laughed, and for once it wasn't defensive or forced, just joyful. You know, she said, I used to think being chosen in the will meant Mom loved you more. I didn't interrupt, but now I think it meant she trusted you to carry what she couldn't. That part hit harder than I expected, because it was true. And I had almost forgotten that trust is heavier than love, but stronger too. Later that night, I walked back to the house, alone. Porch light buzzing softly, wind rustling through the sycamores. I sat on the steps and pulled out the photo Tasha had given me weeks ago, us as kids, grinning like the world hadn't tried to break us yet. I slid it into a frame and placed it on the windowsill above the sink, right where Mom used to keep hers. Then I opened the drawer where I'd tucked away the letter Mom wrote me in the attic. I read it again, slower this time. Hold your ground. That's all I ask. I smiled. I hid. And it changed everything. The next morning, I found a note taped to my front door. It was in Tasha's handwriting. If you ever decide to sell the house, don't let it stand. For her, for us, for whoever comes next. There was no signature, just that final thought. It wasn't a plea. It was a promise. One I intended to keep. In a world where people steal, lie, and betray out of fear they'll never have enough, this house had taught me something rare. That real wealth isn't measured in square footage or market value, it's in legacy, in roots, in what you rebuild when no one's clapping. Tasha took something she didn't deserve, but life gave us a chance to write the ending ourselves. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with redemption. So now, when I sit on the porch with a cup of coffee in the sun warming the railing my mom once leaned against, I don't think about what was stolen. I think about what was saved. Sometimes the deepest betrayal doesn't come from strangers, it comes from the people who know exactly where to hurt you. But healing isn't just about getting back what was taken, it's about becoming someone who can stand taller than the pain. Brandon didn't just take back the house, he took back his voice. And when the dust settled, he built something stronger than walls. He rebuilt the family. If this story moved you, if you've ever had to rebuild after someone broke your trust, drop a comment below and tell us your story. You're not alone. Like this video if you believe redemption is more powerful than revenge. Subscribe for more emotional stories like this because the best stories, they aren't just watched, they're felt.